Great seeing you, Baba.
It's well from ODUN.
Tasha, Antonio, everyone. Great seeing you all. Ache.
Alafia.
Ache, familia.
Ache, familia.
Bye-bye, man. I love you, brother. It's so great to see you.
Gracias. Yeah, good to see everybody here.
I'm a little late because I was in the Latino American chat.
All right. Okay. All right. I guess I pray that everyone.
One laptop. So the laptop next to the room. You can talk.
Alafia, everyone.
Next to the room. There's a laptop connected to them.
Hey, I borrowed.
To do what?
Everyone. If you guys please, as you guys enter the
I don't know what you're
chat group, if you guys can mute your mic. You guys can leave your video on, but just mute the mic so that we can hear.
If you don't mute it, I'll just mute you guys here as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to take it on the phone. I'm just going to take it on the phone. It's recording.
All right. Okay. All right. Abora boy, how's everyone?
Abora too.
Hey, Abora boy, Baba.
All right. So. So I got it working on my laptop. Sorry for the little intricacies right here. Here, what I'll do is I'll begin to mute everyone, and then we'll proceed. So, if you are not muted as of yet, I will mute you. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Abora boy, folks. Thank you all so much for coming on this line for us today. So our ODUN IFA has happened in Nigeria, and what we'll be doing today is we're going to be recording this and unpacking the ODU, analyzing the ODU of Eji Ogbe, and talking about some of the messages, particularly as they pertain to where we are here in America, in Los Angeles, in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of a rebellion, in the midst of trauma, during a very incredible time that we will overcome and we will prevail and be victorious in. So I want to begin it like that, but I also want to begin with prayer and asking all of us if we can center ourselves so that we can be, praying for the upliftment of our community, for the healing of our communities, respectively, and also for coming together of our communities to unify even more, even on a greater level. So, Olodumare, we ask that you would support us. We thank you for this new year. We thank you for our lives. We thank you for life. We thank you for our health. We thank you for our families. We thank you for money, food, clothing, shelter, children. We thank you for having a positive outlook and a desire to inquire of a higher purpose, a higher source in terms of what to do in the future. We thank you for the messages of Eji Ogbe today. We ask that you would continue to ward off all death, sickness, cases, controversy, ward off fights, ward off violence, ward off pain and suffering from us. Give us protection. Give us peace of mind, joy, longevity, prosperity, victory over adversity, healing, and all the wonderful things of life as we move forward, as we progress. Help us to see the Ire today. Help us to see the great blessings that are coming to us as a result of what Ifa has brought to us and our connection to it. Ashe, Emma Kamimeni Amo, Emma Kamimeni Ano, Emma Kamimeni Adelokun, Tamule, Tori Ifa Lonimi, Ebora Timpanini, Eni Banami, Awon Ati Ifa Lelejo, Ifa, we are your children. We are children of the Irumole. So if anyone, anything, any entity has any query with us, they have a query with you, and we belong to you. Ashe. So now, what I wanted to do, I just want to give you guys the layout of it. What's happening is we cast the ODUN IFA ODU, which the IFA cast in Ado Ekiti. And the ODU of this year for us is the ODU, which is Eji Ogbe. It came in the Ire of all Ire.
Ashe.
Ashe. And there are special Akunabo that we need to feed to Obatala. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to analyze the ODU as a community. And then from there, we're going to share that with Chief Popola and on the continent. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an even larger understanding of the verses, particularly analyzing them as they pertain to us here. For those of us who are in America, the Caribbean, in the whole of the African diaspora. So we're going to analyze it from that perspective. So in terms of that, I guess I wanted to lay out, I guess, some of the order that I would like to see. And, you know, if my elders who are on, if you all can let me know what y'all think of that. I was thinking we could go in the sense of seniority. And the way we do that in Ifa is the youngest goes first, and then the eldest kind of wraps it up. But what I wanted to do before we open it up to other Ifa deliberation, I want to begin perhaps myself being the younger, and then have Baba Agbola, Jose Rodriguez to go next, and then have Oluwanla Irawu Ifa to finish it up and give us a good summation, and then have people to kind of come in and give comments. Is that agreeable?
But I think maybe we should be the ones that kind of wrap it up. Ifa Kolade?
Huh?
We could be like one of the last ones and let other folks.
Oh, so just for us to all wrap it up at the end.
Yeah, and just kind of conclude everything.
Okay. All right, so then.
And if each person could introduce themselves, if they're part of a temple, like say what their temple is, or maybe their Odu where they were something like that before starting.
And 1 second, Agbola. One thing I wanted to ask is, so I want, as Agbola is saying, is open it up for everyone, and then from there we'll go and myself, Agbola, Oluwanla to kind of sum it up. The other thing I wanted to ask is if someone, and if you all aren't comfortable with this, it's fine, but can we have an individual to take minutes? And what that basically means is just jot down notes of what, just some of the highlights of what is said, and then can you email it to myself and Oluwanla, and also to Chief, and then we can do it that way. So can I have someone who would agree to do that? Yeah, F1, you're saying
Yeah,
do that?
I would, yeah, because I'm actually also recording it on my phone, so I would be able to do that, for translate from that.
Okay, so we would like to have those notes ASAP, like hopefully, you know, pretty quickly, in the sense of at least by the end of tonight, so that I can get them out tomorrow. Is that okay?
Sure, there's a 3-hour difference.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so much. So I'm sending my email to you. I'm sending it out to everyone, and I'm about to send it to you. Okay.
La Fourchette?
Yeah, that's it right there. So I just sent it out. And so once, you know, when you have everything together, just send it to me, and then I'll get it to Agbola, Baba Amos, and then also to Chief Popola, and then we'll get everything set. So, all right, so that's basically it. We have everything laid out. So please, what are the analysis of Eji Ogbe? What do y'all see? Aboro.
Lafayette, everyone. This is Fall Shumkami from Jacksonville, Idea Temple. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
I was very excited when I heard the ODU, and of course, because what came to mind is the amount of light and exposure that Eji Ogbe usually portends. And as I started to read some of my resources about the ODU, one of the things that struck me was how we are going to have the E-ray, the Bobo E-ray, but in this ODU, it does talks about, possibly missing your E-ray, having a situation where, you may, I guess, be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or not paying attention, or haven't done your EBA properly. I'll read, it says that Ifa says that the person needs to offer EBA because of the 4 E-ray that are looking for him or her. However, he or she might not be able to secure 3 of them if the necessary EBA is not offered. So I'm sure that you all have heard that one before, and I just thought that would be something interesting to kind of maybe take a deeper dive on. How can we secure that E-ray that's coming to us?
Ashe.
Hello, Baba. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. My name is Anthony. Everybody, I am an Omo Awo of Ifa Kolade, but I was initiated in Cuba some years, 12 years now, in the local me system. But I am studying with the Torta Tukara Baba. So if I could offer a little bit of advice here on it, Eji Ogbe, Aboro Aboye, everybody. Eji Ogbe is one of these ODU that Ifa says there is a time for us to work. There's a time for us to do Ebo. There's a particular, I didn't learn Ifa in the way of verses per se, but we learned in stories, just what they call pataki. And so the story is of a mountain that was trying to be penetrated with a hoe, and it couldn't be. And I view this story in reference to Ifa, in reference to everything, is that like the priests have to come together as a mountain. They have to come together to teach so that they're not being penetrated or broken down. In Eji Ogbe, Ifa says that he will save all of his sons and daughters. Ifa says that he will save all of his sons and daughters, but it comes through the offering of sacrifice, the offering of Ebo, the ability to learn and take in Ifa. You know, Ifa has to grow. Ifa has to grow. It has to reach the community. The community has to be together and show its face to the public. And that's very important in this time, because I believe that what Ifa is saying is that as we come together, as things like this happen, that it's only going to continue to allow us to do better and reach the community and hopefully change minds and be stronger overall, if that makes sense. All right. So I think there's a calling here in Eji Ogbe, especially with the particular patakis that I'm thinking about and referencing, for the ability to come together and just grow in Ifa, grow our houses, to grow our communities, to teach, to guide people.
Hello, Boye. Can you guys hear me?
Boato.
This is Egbe Leke, Baba Egbe of Oturutu Kakupo. And that's what Anthony was talking about, reminded me of something in Edi Ogbe. There are major Elegbe energies in Edi Ogbe. And as simple leaders and community leaders, it's very important that we propitiate Egbe to very regularly to maintain our position and to be the light and the guide and the leaders in the community. It seems like that's what's missing majorly in the world that's going on right now. There's no real leadership, and I think it's incumbent upon us to be those leaders as temple leaders and community leaders, so we can be the guide and show what we need, what needs to be done in the community. So if we propitiate Egbe on a regular basis, it will help us tremendously.
Ashe.
Ashe. Baba, can I say something as probably one of the youngest people in here? My name is Rafael Maya from the temple Oshe Balefon, Puerto Rico. It's new temple. My teacher is Baba Agbola, Jose Rodriguez. And all of you in here are people that I have either met or want to meet. Entonces, I'm gonna keep it short, because I know everyone wants to say something, and we all kind of have a lot of the same messages now, because we have the same Baba. With everything that's going on right now, I think that it's really important, and Eji Ogbe talks about organization. Not only organization within our homes, but also in our temples, and also as a whole. And what's going on now with the Black Lives Matter movement, or what's been going on always, I feel that this ODU is super important in cuestión de organization. We need to be real organized. We also need to be aware of what we're saying and doing, because we're gonna be hitting a lot of emotional things this year through Eji Ogbe. There's going to be a lot of emotion that's going to be coming up, and in Eji Ogbe, our mouths could destroy everything that we've worked for, including relationships, and including what's going on now in the United States, and all over the world, really. So it's important that when we speak, we be very intentful on what we're saying and why we're saying it. So my mom always used to say, like, think before you speak. And I feel like in the past month, I haven't been doing that so much. And I feel like it's really important in this ODU, because not only can we destroy, but we can also build a lot. And so I remember Baba Jose in one reading that he did for one of a person we gave a Wofakan to, he was talking about that it's real important for her that even if someone's on their deathbed and you know that maybe that they're gonna pass away, like to say it, that you're gonna live, you're gonna go through this. Like, we need to be the positive voice as leaders of temples and as leaders of communities, and we need to be aware of that positivity. Obviously, I don't know if I should give like any types of taboos. I mean, I think that one huge taboo is being on is lying. Like, I think that amongst again, in our own families, in our communities, in our temples, as a whole, we need to be very honest as well. If we don't know how to do something, don't try to do it. Like, you know, delegate that. If we think that, even if it's a white lie, you know, people say, oh, these white lies, like, don't even do that. Like, just be honest with what you're feeling and what you're thinking, because that's really what's going to get us through these hard times and these emotional times. I agree with Baba, what he said about Egbe. I feel that Egbe is a huge force in this ODU. I feel that without Egbe, that leadership is not going to happen. So I feel it's real important. Also, Eshu Odara. Eshu Odara is real important in this ODU as well. Also, a few other things, and I'll just wrap it up with this real quick, is that in this ODU, it's really important to be grateful. Whoa! Be grateful. Wow, someone felt that. So it's real important to be grateful, not only to people who have given us knowledge and given us opportunities, but it's super important to be grateful to Ifa. So it's real important that all of us, and also our children, our followers, however you want to look at it, our patients or clients, that every day, like, the first thing we do, we brush our teeth, we drink water, and we go straight to Ifa and we give thanks, you know. And obviously we ask for things we need intentfully, you know, positive things, also things we don't need, you know. There's a long story and a long verse in Eji Ogbe, and I'm just gonna sum up the story real quick about Olorumbi. It's a woman who wanted to have kids, you know, and she went to the Iroko tree because she saw other women were going to the Iroko tree, offering goats, offering sheep, offering different things to the Iroko, and she was like, you know what? I'm gonna offer my kid. If you give me a kid, I'm so desperate. In 1 year, I'll give this kid back to you, like, as a sacrifice, you know. And then the Iroko was like, oh, of course, that's perfect, you know. So luckily, you know, to make a long story short, she did Ebo with Eshu Odara. And when that year was up, she was real, like, she wasn't, like, this whole time, she wasn't really giving thanks. She wasn't grateful for things. And at the end, when she had to go give that kid after the year, the Iroko was like, no, I'm taking the kid. And Eshu took the goat and the kid and kind of like hid the kid and gave the kid back to Olorumbi and sacrificed the goat and put the head in like a white cloth and gave it to the Iroko. The Iroko didn't notice until later, but the Iroko had already accepted. So it couldn't, Eshu Odara was like, yo, you already accepted, you know? I know we all have this story. I know we've all read this story, and maybe you guys actually know this story more than I do. But there's one thing, and I know I shared it with a few of you. There's a song about this verse, and I want to share it with you guys. And it goes like this. This is the last thing I'll say. It goes, Olorumbi, oh, Bama, Bama, Iroko, Bama, Bama. Olorumbi, oh, Bama, Bama, Iroko, Bama, Bama. Ele ure, ye, ure, e ure, wambele, Alakuton jeje akutong owombolojo. Olorombi iwa yeye omore akwambi ebo. Olorombi o bama iroko bama. Thank you all. You all are my teachers, and I'm grateful to all of you. Thank you. Ashe.
Budaboye, this is Ifa Shewa. Can you hear me? Budaboye, this is Ifa Shewa. Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah. No, I put in mute. Want to talk? You have to on.
Hi. This is Ifa Shewa from the New York Oturtuka Temple. And what I wanted to say or share about Eji Ogbe, as soon as I heard Eji Ogbe, the first thing that popped in my head was a lazy person is a useless person. And with all the things that's going on, especially in New York, with the pandemic, with the rioting, with shortages of things, was that I think we see the lazy parts of ourselves, and that now we are alleviating ourselves of those things. I think that Eji Ogbe is also teaching us, like what Raphael said, is about honesty, for us to be honest with ourselves, because there was so much taking from us and us being locked in our homes and things like that, especially in New York, not being able to go anywhere, that it gave us time to reflect on being honest. And in that ODU, it says, you know, I behave as my creator creates me. I do good always, and I am honest too. So to have that, really look honestly at ourselves and look at how Olodumare created us. But also in that ODU, I think what also stuck out was the fact that it said that we don't harbor evil thoughts. And what's been going on, like with the riotings or people just fighting and those types of things, I think this year, in order for us to really receive all the Ire that surrounds us, that we cannot harbor evil thoughts. I agree with Ifajuan when he was saying about feeding Ekbe and really looking at ourselves in leadership and how to also be able to, like Raphael said about organizing ourselves to make sure that what we're doing is honest, and what we're doing is very structured and organized. And I think also in Eji Ogbe, because it's talking, you know, a lot of the Odus that I read, it talks so much about Olodumare, that I think really putting Olodumare first above all things, and just really praying every morning, meditating every morning, and doing what we need to do. And also before we go to sleep, just really empty out to make sure that the next day we are not blinded to the array that we are to receive, and that we each put in our work that is needed to really embrace the array. And I pray that everybody is safe and healthy.
Abura Boye, Aboshise, can everyone hear me? Yes, Arukamini, Fayemi, Ojelabi. Gonna introduce myself. I'm one of the youngest, I believe, here in the live stream. I'm 20 years old, and I'm an Omoawo of Agbola and of Oloye Sholagbade Popola. We are located, our Beodisha is located here in Edinburgh, Texas. I manage the page Botanica Batala Onire. And as you know, being the youngest, I just have few things to say of my knowledge of and in the Odun of Eji Ogbe. Eji Ogbe, as we know, has many things that speak to us. You know, and Eji Ogbe is known to be a lot of things can come good and a lot of negative can come too. It just depends on how we mold our character in every situation that is given. For what I've studied, Eji Ogbe tells us a little bit of everything, and starting with our character. You know, they say in Eji Ogbe, if we have good character, then all the things we have pertain to us. But yet, if we have bad character, none of the things we have pertain to us. If you have bad character, then the house you have does not pertain to you. You have bad character, the kids you have don't pertain to you. Any materialistic things or spiritual things that you have, if you have bad character, they do not pertain to you. And it can go so on and so on. Also, Ifa says in Eji Ogbe that at times we can tend to leave things halfway. Ifa says it's very important in this Odun this year that whenever we start something, we complete it and don't leave anything halfway. For example, I'm going to start building something right now, finish it as soon as you can and don't leave it for later. Whatever can be done now, let's get it done now. Ifa also tells us in this Odun that there could be times that we're going through situation things and we look for everything but ourselves to blame. And Ifa says in Eji Ogbe that at times we can be our very own enemy and not even see that. So Ifa says it's very important that when there are situations that are going on, we need to look at ourselves too and reflect and think about what can you do to make it better, and not always think, oh, it's something that's going on, or it's this person, they're doing something to me, or whatnot. Ifa says that you can be your very own enemy at times in this Odun. Also, Ifa says that we should avoid arrogance in this Odun because being arrogant can cause lots of death, and death is not always physical death. Death could be a loss of job, a loss of opportunity, a loss of chances, a loss of a job. You know, just by the way that you behave, you can cause to lose a lot of things. Ifa also says in Eji Ogbe that we should be nurturing our bodies very well, eating well and taking care of our health and making sure that we're eating the appropriate foods and making sure when we wake up in the morning, we eat something before we go on about our day, because, a lot of times, I know at least for myself, I wake up and after doing Moshe, you can forget and skip a meal. Ifa says it's very important that, we are eating very, very well to, make sure that we stay healthy. And again, like many of the other Olorishas and Awos here mentioned, the worship of Egbe Odun. It's very important in this Odun that we worship Egbe, so that just like we need the support of our physical families, we also need the support of our spiritual Egbe family that live in Ile Odun, so that they can support us. Ifa and Eji Ogbe also says here that we should always try to do things the correct way and never try to find the easy way out of it. You can say like cheating, let's try to do everything the right way. Let's study for it. Let's get it right done and let's not cut any corners to try to do things just the way we want. So let's do everything the correct way. Let's not cheat. And that's something that's important. So that way we can receive all of the ideas, Adikawa, that Orumila is bringing to us in this year. Thank you very much. Ashe.
Abu Rabaye, this is Baba Sekou, Olayinka. Can I be heard? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Good
to see everybody. Baba Amos, good to see you. I'll keep it short. In Eji Ogbe, we're told, and I think this is very apropos for this time that we're in and what's going on around us, is that when we are faced with odds that seem insurmountable, when everyone is against us, when it seems like we don't have friend or ally or anything or anyone we can rely on, Olodumare is our rock. Olodumare is our support. It says if Olodumare supports us, then even if the entire world is against us, we will emerge victorious. So I think at this time, when we have a national leadership that's basically expressing benign neglect, we are at the mercy of gangster capitalists. We are abused and everything else that we have been in our long sojourn as minority peoples in this country. Olodumare is telling us, I believe in Eji Ogbe this year, that I'm on your side. And with Olodumare on our side, we will be victorious. Eji Ogbe also calls for humility. Eji Ogbe also calls for good character. Eji Ogbe is the light. Eji Ogbe is to introduce light to the universe, introduce light into the void. And at this time when pestilence, at this time of riot, wars and rumors of wars, we are reminded that we have to exercise good character, as one of the previous awos stated, and we have to be humble and we have to be worthy of the blessings of Olodumare so that we can make it through. Again, I don't want to belabor the point. I think a lot of what I was going to say has already been said by others, and I'm sure it will be expanded upon by the awos to come after me. But that's what I have to share.
Abuye, this is Yaifonye, and I won't belabor the point either. But what I do want to say is that I felt good when I saw that the Odu was Eji Ogbe, and the Ray, and the Ray for all Ray, and we know that it takes a balance in Eji Ogbe, and we've discussed that you can, even with all good Ray, you can tip that balance with just one thing that can change what the array that we have. But what I mostly want to speak on, or that I find interesting, is that yesterday, Baba Amos and Vakola Day, that yesterday on that call, what did we end up talking about? About organizing. You said that, those words, Baba Amos, you talked about organizing, being strategic, and then here today, we've got Eji Ogbe, which talks about organizing, being strategic. So we know that's the important part, that not only will Olodumare guide and protect us through this next year, that Olodumare is on our side, but the idea of actually not going willy-nilly, but actually knowing that we have the ability we know what we have to do, and that it is a matter of organizing and strategizing, and that we can see our ways through. And even for those who don't know what we know, those other people that we may come in contact with who are not Ifa worshipers, we still have the opportunity to bring some light to them with our messages and what we do from here. So I'm just, Ikpa o, Abatalao, Rishanlao, Ikpa o. So let us just move on and Eji Ogbe into the light. Asha.
Sure.
Aburuboye,
Abushisha Aboto.
Aburuboye. This is Babala Fumi Fago Sumo Suntayo. Babalawo Awo Ifa, Olo Batala from Ile Ifa or Bataloya. Ile in New York City, Brooklyn, New York, and I'm happy to be here. I have 8 points I'd like to share with everybody. 8 points reflecting on Baba Eji Ogbe, 8 points. The first point is Baba Eji Ogbe, I'm sorry. Our Ifa community, in my 45 years of being in the religious culture, spiritual culture, Ifa has been somewhat peripheral. However, the second point now, Ifa is becoming integral. Integral. Why? The third point is, at one time, Baba Eji Ogbe was the last Odu and moved to the first position. Baba Eji Ogbe was the last Odu, and now it moved to the first position in the 16 Meiji hierarchy. So that's like a metaphorical way of saying that our Ifa is going to move into a prominent position in human society right now. Okay? And the fourth point is Baba Eji Ogbe blesses one in double. It blesses one in double. Eji Ogbe. So we want to reflect on how powerful that is, that our blessings will come in double, but it's a lot of work. We shouldn't take that for granted. The fifth point is we all need to study leadership. We need to study leadership as if it's a new trade that's immediately applicable, like plumbing or carpentry, and as an academic subject that requires ongoing study. Okay? So that's the fifth point. The sixth point is the entire human civilization's moving into the fifth phase of creation. As we review the creation story, and I touched upon this yesterday, we're moving from the fourth stage of creation, which is now deteriorating. It's coming apart at the seams. And we're moving into the fifth level of creation. But before we move into the fifth level of creation, we're going to see the destruction of the fourth level. So we have to be prepared for that. It requires emergency preparation on all levels, okay? As we prepare to move into the fifth level of creation. And still on the fifth point, our physicists have said that there's 5 levels of civilizations in the galaxy, in the solar system. And our Mother Earth, our human civilization is not even type 1. It's still in the type 0. But we're moving towards a type 1 civilization. So we need to be prepared for that. And how do we do that? Number 7, how do we do that is to study leadership. Yes, let's go back to leadership. We want to study leadership. And I'm winding up with 2 more, and that's it, I'm out. Preparing for higher dimensional life. Higher dimensional life. Beyond the third density dimension we live in. And last but not least, the inverse of Baba Eji Ogbe is Eji Ogbe, the averter of death. So we need to study and practice averting death, because it's going to be all around us. Old forms are going to die out. And how do we keep ourselves alive? By averting death, the inverse of Baba Eji Ogbe's Oyekumeji. So with that, I share with you all. May we progress. And I look forward to the further deliberation. Aburubo Yebushishe.
Alafia, Ashe.
You want me to unmute you, Baba Ifatunji? Hello? Are you there? I thought you were speaking.
It appears his microphone's not working.
Your mic is not working. Hello?
Baba Shangodina, when you had first signed in, it should have said something on there like to click on audio. Or maybe if you go out and come back in, it'll probably pop up again. Okay.
Sign language.
Anyone else wants to share? Eji Ogbe?
Okay.
Aluo,
Okay.
you gonna go, Aluo?
Okay. All right. Oh, Aboru Aboye. How's everybody doing?
Ogbo.
It's still good.
Yeah, thank God. Thank the Lord Almighty. So, I too was echo all the messages. There are three main messages that I want to focus on, particularly to Eji Ogbe. One is what we titled the discussion yesterday was hope during a time of hopelessness. And at this time, just yesterday, I got calls from at least 3 people. About at least 2 to 3 people who were contacting me because they were trying to figure out ways to repatriate to another country. Because they're like, man, I've had it with America. I want to leave. And in Eji Ogbe, this is something that happened with Orumila. In this, there's a time when Orumila was brought into the city of Ile-Ife, and he was trying to evacuate the city of Ife, all the 4 Ajogun. So in the town that Orumila was in, death, sickness, losses, conflicts, and fights abound in that town. And Orumila tried everything that he could in order to make those, and he did it to no avail. The Ifa verse says they simply refused to go. And then I did a sermon on this called Orumila Left. An Eji Ogbe, Orumila got so fed up that he was like, I'm gone, I'm out. So what this is also talking about is that people at this time, they're at a space where they are either hopeless or they've reached a point where they're like, you know what? I'm done. I give up on this place. Forget it. And people have an attitude of F America, F the police, F all this. And in terms of that, that is a place in this Odu that Orumila arrived at. So as he was leaving, the town, he met some awos there that were his Omo awos, and they ended up casting Ifa for Orunmila. And the remedy was interesting because what Ifa is saying here is Orunmila offered his abo, and then he was asked to do an additional tutu after the abo, where he took Obi, Orogbo, and Atare, the pods, and he stood in the four corner intersection, and he threw one Atare, one Obi, and one Orogbo in one corner of the four-way crossroad, and then he chased it down. He hit death, chased death down. Death fell, and death turned into prosperity, because people lose their life and wealth and so on. So in the other very interesting aspect of this Odu is that the relationship between the Ire and Ayewo, in the sense of how death is connected to wealth, how sickness is connected to spouse, how conflicts and fights are connected to having children. And when we change our approach, when we change our perspective on things, that changes also the situation. So in terms of that, different things that might be necessary is for us to change our approach. And also, many of us have reached a place where we are maybe hopeless. Many people in our community have reached a place where they might be hopeless. So this also relates to another verse, which talks about a woman by the name of Yeye Aletile. And what that Ifa says is that the night of all Ire has not yet fallen for an Awo. And once again, this verse says, there's hope, there's future. Let no one lose hope on Edu. Let no one lose hope on Ifa. Let no one lose hope on Olodumare. Because at this time, so many have lost hope and are even, some people might even be potentially depressed. Maybe not us. No, none of us on this call, but perhaps people out there, I live in Los Angeles, at the epicenter of some of this. And, when y'all see me make a face like, I heard gunshots in the distance right now on this phone call, on this Zoom call. So many people have lost hope. Many people are depressed. And what we're seeing is the energy of that level of depression, loss, and the loss of that hope. So another thing in terms of this Odu Ifa of Eji Ogbe, I want to probably share maybe two additional methods. The riots, in terms of the loss of hope. But also now, the other thing that we're involved in is the middle of a pandemic. And just as I say we're in the middle of a pandemic, all of a sudden, my phone rings and it says that today we're on curfew in Los Angeles yet again. So we're not talking about anything that we're separated from. We're in the midst of this. On Eji Ogbe also, this Ifa says that all of the illnesses of the world came into the world through the Odu Eji Ogbe. So it's rather poignant that we get Eji Ogbe during the time of a pandemic. So what Ifa is giving us also is another thing, because I know that different points in time we cast Eji Ogbe right before we found ourselves in the midst of this pandemic. It was our Itadogun Odu. And then after we were in the throes of it, we cast it again as Otuotuka and got Eji Ogbe once again. So this is at least the third time that we've seen Eji Ogbe for us during this time of a pandemic. So it's saying, one, we have remedies around us. Two, we have, Ifa comes offering us the solution to this problem. So it's definitely spoken of here. I'm sure the other Awos will elaborate. And last thing I want to share, of course, is the idea of all of us maintaining hope, checking in with each other, checking in terms of, you know, how we might feel, and also for us not to stop. What I mean by that, this Ifa also talks about this is the Ifa for the mat and the chair and the king and the crown and the feather. What this Ifa is saying is there's a potential of stopping, in the sense of if something comes very difficult, please don't give up on it. Complete the task. The other thing is, if we reach a certain plateau, let us continue to work so that we can reach the next level and not to rest on our laurels. What that means is basically not to say, all right, well, I got one verse, I'm good. I got one verse of each Odu, I'm good. Go and study more. And Ifa says on Eji Ogbe that the challenges that we're involved in right now, Ifa is saying that we're going to get through this. At the end of the day, we're going to get through this. And on a deeper level, this Odu is saying that we're going to have so much Ire that the management of the Ire will be the problem. So, Aboro boy.
Aboraboye. I'm actually going to talk. I'll talk after, but my wife Francisca wanted to share something.
Sure.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings, Mama Yanifa.
Aboraboye, everyone. Let's see. Well, I am not surprised that Eji Ogbe is the Odu of this year. I would love for us at some point, either this team or teams of the world, whoever all is doing live videos, to do a debrief of last year's Odu, because I think there's so much that we can learn based on debriefing the Odu of last year. At least for me, like, I feel like so much has happened so fast, so big, that it would be so good to just debrief what happened, right? And to have like a spiritual analysis of it. So I would love to sit through that and listen to you all speak about it. So let's just wanted to start off there. There's two things that stand out for me. There's several things that stand out for me in this Odu, given all that's happened this year, what our communities have gone through. And by our communities, I mean our spiritual community of Ifa. I mean the communities that many of us work with and are in, whether that is communities of color, poor people, women, people that are attempting to do good in the world with community organizations and that kind of thing. So one is, there's a big message that is standing out a lot to me, even before Eji Ogbe came out, around fighting a sort of like a fight that can't be won. And there's a whole story in Eji Ogbe around Orunmila being a priest. He's always a priest in all the Odus, but about so many people coming to him because Iku, death was taking folks, right? And also his own friends were dying, and he felt hurt that his friends were dying. He felt really sad his friends were dying, and he felt like something needed to be done, and he felt like he wasn't doing enough or didn't know what to do. So he kept wanting to really fight Iku, wanting to stop death from happening. And that Iku was doing its thing, right? Idu was doing its sort of divine thing. And so there's a very long story around it that's really interesting. But I guess the thing that I'm drawing upon is a couple of things. One is, I do wholeheartedly believe that this pandemic is far from over. And I really do believe that we are going to be having probably another very dramatic, traumatic, impactful wave of infections to COVID-19. And it's just really hard to think about the 100,000 people that we have lost here in the United States, and about the potential loss of so many more lives to both the pandemic and then just other sort of ills, right? And that there's so much that we're gonna have to reckon, I think, with death and loss in the coming year, that when I think about it, it feels quite overwhelming. And that I think Eji Ogbe is telling us, I think, as spiritual community and folks that are Ifa followers, to figure out how to really be there for other community folks as people really struggle against death, against illness, in this potential new wave. And so this isn't to scare anyone, but this is more to really think about like this sort of battle against this like silent enemy that is COVID, that we can't win unless we obviously take care of ourselves, but that we are going to lose people just like we did, right? That's one. And then on the strategic side, I think with the rebellions, because I don't like to call them riots, with the rebellions that happened all across the country in the last few days, I think there is a message that's really deep, at least that resonates for me as a community person that works with other folks that are attempting to make social change in this country, which is that it's time to shift strategy, and it's time to shift the set of demands that we've been making. And so Black lives do matter. I think that it's taken hold across the country and across the world, that message. And that at this point, in terms of even the conversations that I've been having with a lot of my friends over the last 48 hours, it's like, it's time to really focus on systems and how to defund the systems that have been harming us for a very long time, including police forces, right? How do we center care? How do we center a culture of well-being and care versus a culture of punishment and a culture that relates to our communities in such a savage way, right? And so if we're able to really kind of focus on a fight around using resources in a way that really tends to the well-being of our community, instead of, 50%, 60% of, or 70% sometimes of city budgets, state budgets being used for police forces, how do we use some of those monies for the things that we really need in our communities? Good education, good healthcare, arts, so many things that our folks have been lacking for so long. And so when it talks about, fighting a losing battle, like there's a part of me that wonders, like, we're fighting so hard for individuals to be charged and, incarcerated and all of that have committed crimes against their own community. And I feel like the movement is leading right now, which is defunding these departments that are probably always going to be, in a culture of violence, right? And implementing a lot of violent tactics against our people. So it just makes me think about, how do we use this moment to be generative and to be really creative with the demands that we're making, the kind of organizing that we're doing, to not end up feeling like we're fighting a losing battle, right? And that maybe that isn't the most strategic thing, the most strategic demands, given that they haven't yielded more police officers being charged, more police officers being condemned by the state for their behavior. How do we pivot, right? And so that's what sort of comes up for me. And the same with folks in the immigrant rights movement and other spaces. So that's one. And the other losing battle is again like this being in quarantine, right? And feeling like we want to do 1,000,001 things to figure out how to you know, do the same thing we've always been doing. And I guess what it affirms for me is like the universe has hit pause, and we must adapt and be adaptable to the new situation. So let's not bang our heads against the wall trying to figure out how we fit our previous life into this new life that we have, right? So there's a part of like being nimble and being flexible and being adaptable in like not fighting these losing battles that feels really important for our own well-being. Like all of you all have reaffirmed our own well-being, our own spiritual well-being. And the other message that really stands out to me was this story of Emi, I don't know how to say it correctly in Yoruba, which is about the breath, right? Life itself, and how Emi was the child of Orisha Buwuji, who is Obatala, and how Emi was coming into the world, and Olodumare told Emi the breath, the life force that we have inside of us, the aliveness, that it would be the most important part of our bodies, and how it was that body that Emi was going to be contained in was going to suffer a lot of losses. It was going to suffer the loss of wealth and the loss of, you know, relationships and opportunities and all sorts of not so fortunate events, right? And I feel like, and that it said, but don't lose hope, because as long as you are the most important part of the body, and as long as there's life and life itself and aliveness in our body, everything else can be contended with, everything else can be fixed, everything else can be worked out. And I feel like we're entering a period that is, I mean, we have entered a period that is very, very hard spiritually, morally, emotionally, physically, because of this pandemic and because we're under an administration that has made conditions very, very challenging to navigate right now. And so I think it's just literally Eji Ogbe is going to remind us the entire year that as long as we have life itself, then we're gonna be all right. As long as we have breath in our lungs and aliveness is running through our body and the bodies of our families and our communities, we have the ability to generate all kinds of beautiful things and to be connected and to work together and to fix situations. And so I think that it also reminds us that some of us have suffered a lot of losses already, from economic to emotional to physical, lost people, lost family members. But as long as Emi continues to remember that they're the most important part of the body, we can regain it all and more. And I think that was Oldumare's message to the breath, that like your journey in the world is going to be rough, but everything you lose, you will regain, or so much that you've lost, you will regain twofold. And so it's something that we're going to have to remind both ourselves, our own communities, our families, and all those that I think will be navigating some really thick, murky waters this year. Yeah, so thank you. Boroboye.
Ashe, Mama.
Aboraboye, everyone. So, Eji Ogbe. Ashe. So, as I've been listening to everyone, the way I was going to deliver the messages ended up shifting. So I'm still gonna deliver them, but it's just, I got so much insight from listening to you guys and what you guys shared that it made me think of modifying things a different way. So I definitely want to try to give a message from Eji Ogbe that affects us here in the United States, because that was the whole intent of why Chief Popola wanted us to do like these individual group like DAFAs and meetings so that we can, because we live here, we can give a better analysis, a better perspective on using Eji Ogbe and seeing what's happening in our own environments. And so in saying that, because Rafa's also here, he's in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is definitely included in part of what is the United States, unwillingly in many cases. But basically, I include Puerto Rico because based on the policies and the laws that are created here, that affects the people on the island. Whether they're in agreement with it or not, they have to follow kind of like what happens here in the United States. So that's why I had told Rafa before, like, please join this call, because what we share here is going to affect what happens to the people on the island as well. So in saying that, Eji Ogbe is an Odu that stresses the importance of leadership more than anything else. And Eji Ogbe is the #1 Odu, so you can't mention Eji Ogbe and not mention leadership at the same time. So in saying that, Eji Ogbe basically says that you are your own worst enemy. And I think someone had mentioned it here. I don't know if it was in another call that I was previously on. So all those that are in leadership positions in this group, those that are in leadership positions in other temples in the United States or groups, and not just people that practice the Ifa and Orisha practice, but that have any type of leadership position all the way up to the president of the country. You have a huge responsibility to demonstrate, first of all, humility more than anything else. And to know that arrogance is what will take you out completely. We're already seeing instances of various leaders in the country, from the top, going down to the bottom, sideways, right and left, of where we see instances, and it's going to be amplified this year even more now because of Eji Ogbe, that when our leaders are not demonstrating that humility toward those that they are supposed to be guiding, you're going to see all of those things that they do against the community be exposed. They're going to be exposed, and it will lead to them being ousted, rejected, and the community basically separating themselves completely from those leaders who exhibit that type of behavior this year. Eji Ogbe needs to, and this Odu talks about patience, talks about humility, talks about not being oppressive toward others, abusing other people, taking advantage of people for your own personal gain. All of those things are when we mention that Eji Ogbe takes itself out, or takes him or herself out, if that's your Odu, and especially if that's the Odu of the year, the leaders who don't follow those things will take themselves out, and we'll see people distance themselves from them this year, to the point where it could be nobody wants to do anything with you or have anything to do whatsoever with you this year. So from the micro to the macro level this year, everyone who has a leadership position needs to always be keeping that in mind, of the humility, the patience, and why you have that position in the first place. You're there to serve other people. You're not there for your own personal gains. And if you need help, if you need assistance, you don't have the resources or the intelligence or the knowledge or the understanding to do certain things, that you demonstrate that humility and seek the help from those that actually have studied those things, that know about those things, that have the experience in those things. And that's where the leader is going to utilize those around him and prevent that self-destruction of his own position, but also how he'll affect other people around him. So again, take that message from a micro level to a bigger level, the macro level. It's very important this year in Eji Ogbe. Ifa says in Eji Ogbe this year that people need to ensure that they are not engaging in self-deceit. Don't be lying to yourself. If things are bad, they're bad. If things are good, they're good. But don't cover things up. Don't pretend like everything's fine or everything's going well when it really isn't. Or that you know when you really don't know. As somebody had mentioned earlier, speak in Eji Ogbe from a place of knowledge, of experience. And if you don't know, it's best to say, I don't know, instead of trying to pretend. Because that is going to lead for all of those this year to go down that path of experiencing a lot of losses this year also. So self-deceit is huge. What can happen this year also, along with that same message of self-deceit, is self-pity. And what I mean by that is, it's almost like you blaming yourself or giving an excuse for things that aren't working. They're not functioning. And you're always coming up with it's always somebody else's problem. It's the environment. It's the people over here, over there. Eji Ogbe says, please take responsibility for your own actions, your own choices, your own decisions. Don't put it on somebody else. Don't pass the buck and say, no, well, really, it really was them. Take responsibility for the things that are happening in your own personal life, your own temple, your own family, and try to really work on them. Don't say, oh, well, it's because of this, or that, or the other. At the same time, or speaking of the self-pity part this year, we may find ourselves often saying, well, I'm just not smart enough to do that. My memory is just not good enough for that. Or I just don't have the experience to do that type of thing. Or I don't have the time to study this or to work that out. Like, this is not the year for that type of thinking. This is the type of year of thinking more of like the glass being half full than half empty. But because Eji Ogbe is in the Odu that's reigning this year, the tendency will be of people thinking the glass is half empty and being more pessimistic about how we see things happening around us, instead of focusing on, even if it's small positive things that might be popping up here and there, we need to focus on those small positive things this year. Because Eji Ogbe is a very, very powerful Odu, which my wife had mentioned, Jejola, about Emi, where basically you could be this year in the gutter, living on the street, no money, no home, no family. And by the end of the year, as long as you really maintain that positive attitude and are a get-goer, or just really working your butt off this year and using your imagination, your skills, you can end up being that millionaire, that billionaire, and flipping your life around completely this year. But pessimistic ways of thinking this year, we have to throw them out the window. Have to throw them out the window and focus on what are the things that we can accomplish. What are the positive things out there? Yes, be conscious of the challenges, but don't let them outweigh the positive things, because then you're going to have a very difficult time this year succeeding and progressing. And again, take all the messages that I give from a small level to a bigger level. So it's from individual life to family to community to city to state to country. Think of all those peoples in those different areas and stratospheres in life, based on your profession, your occupation, what you do. Take that message and apply it to what's happening there. It's very, very, very important in Eji Ogbe. Ifa says in Eji Ogbe this year that this year, more than any other year, is a year of discipline, of hard work, of really busting your butt in everything that you do and not giving excuses for anything. Don't be asking for money or thinking about making money, but you're on your couch every day watching Netflix and expecting somehow to somebody knock on your door or give you a call and say, hey, here's an opportunity. That's not this year. This year is to be go-getters and get out there and work and have that discipline. At the same time, if you're still somehow very successful and you're still doing really well despite all the challenges that have happened thus far this year, please don't become arrogant and think like, oh, I'm good. I've already reached the top. I'm untouchable. Nothing can happen to me. Because the moment that you think that, that's when you're going to start spiraling down and you're going to see other people going above you. It's very, very important this year under Eji Ogbe. We had learned some of us that were part of the temple back in the day of Chief Ashina. We always heard that one verse of Eji Ogbe, do your work, I am not working. That is where the message comes from this year, and a bunch of other verses from Eji Ogbe that speak of the same type of message. So please be as disciplined as possible this year and as hardworking as possible this year. Yes, it's going to be a challenging year. This is not going to be an easy year whatsoever. There's going to be challenges, so I'm just being honest with everyone. This is not a year of just cruising by and things just falling on your lap. It could, but please work and please have that discipline this year for things to be fruitful for you and your families and your communities and your temples this year. Very, very, very important in this Odu. Ifa says in Eji Ogbe this year that all of us need to ensure that we get a good grip of our emotions. This is a year, it's going to be a year of that roller coaster ride of emotions. You're gonna get those really high highs when you're at the top of that roller coaster, and you're gonna have moments this year when you're at the flat bottom of the roller coaster. And that's just a reality of how Eji Ogbe is going to be this year. So please, when you guys find yourselves at that bottom area this year, where you're feeling desperate, maybe going through depression, sadness, a lot of anger, a lot of frustrations, please find outlets for yourself, people to talk to, things that you can do to unwind and relax and keep yourself sane and emotionally stable as much as possible. Don't try to just deal with it by yourself. Talk to other people. Even though we do have the social distancing that's happening and curfews that are happening, we all have cell phones. We can call people up. We can do video. We can do different things like exercise at home. Even though you can't go out, you can still do a lot of things in your environment, in your home. Please find ways of de-stressing this year. Very, 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 very important. So that way we can keep our sanity, our emotional health this year. It's very, very, very important in Eji Ogbe. Ifa says, and I'll share one more. Ifa says in this Odu that we need to be very grateful this year and show a lot of appreciation this year for even the small things that people do for us. Whether it be somebody gave me $10, you gave me a ride from here to there, you bought me some groceries, you just called me up and we just had a conversation. Whatever it might be this year, please show appreciation to all those that support you in any way. It's very, very important in Eji Ogbe. Please don't take people for granted. Please definitely don't use people for whatever reason this year, because in Eji Ogbe that can happen. Either purposely you do it, or sometimes unconsciously we just take advantage of folks, or just forget to say thank you. And people around us will then be looking at us like, well, he only calls me when he wants this or that, or she only calls me when this is happening. And we don't want that type of relationships, those types of relationships to develop this year from Eji Ogbe. Because that will definitely cause people to separate themselves from us this year also. So where you can end up in the worst possible situation, finding yourself alone with no support, no help whatsoever. And even if people around you are still trying to show compassion for you, despite your behavior in that way, if you're behaving that way, it's almost like they'll give you the minimal amount of time because of the way that you're behaving. So please let's show appreciation, show thanks this year to all those around us so that we can keep having those healthy relationships, keep having that support around us this year. So that's the little that I have to share from Eji Ogbe. This Odu has so many different messages. And like Jejola had mentioned, my wife, it's going to be a very impactful year. A lot of challenges, especially around our feelings and our emotions based on the situation. There's one more thing, sorry, that I just remembered that's very, very important. Eji Ogbe is an Odu that talks about being where you are, staying where you are. So considering the situation of what we're finding ourselves in this year, where we hear a lot of talking about isolating yourself, quarantining yourself. This is not a year to, I'm gonna go take a long distance trip somewhere and go on an airplane and do this or that. Unless you really have to do something this year, it's really pertinent. I advise everyone under Eji Ogbe to not be taking vacations or just, I'm just gonna fly somewhere from Los Angeles to New York for just because I wanna go visit somebody. This is not the year for moving about in long distance types of, it's a time to stay where you are. And so in this message, please follow it for your own general well-being, and so that we don't experience any major losses this year. Aburaboy.
Okay, thank you. And everyone, good afternoon. It's very impressive to be here and to be with all you awos, and this has been very good. Funnily enough, Eji Ogbe is one of the Odus that is better in Ayewo than Ire. And it came in Ire this year, and I echo the comments that some others have said that it's going to be tough this year and that hard work is really required. Because you know what it said in this Odu? It said, do your work. Someone answered, I will not do my work. So this was cast Ifa for the lazy person, he who is resting in the afternoon, only to suffer in the evening. So just echoing the idea of being willing to work hard right now and throughout this year so that, you know, next year or 2 years or 3 years, the suffering doesn't hit us extra hard. Eji Ogbe is the most versatile of the 256 Odus. And there's so many things we can do to help ourselves this year. And I want to focus mainly on, again, the topic of leadership and the psychological and social behavior that people like us who are leaders or who are representatives, what we need to be kind of thinking about and how we need to be treating our people and acting around our people. That might be our family, it might be our temple, our ile, our people at work, whatever. Eji Ogbe says in here that we must never leave any person empty-handed. It says this year, many people will come to us seeking things. It might be money, it might be advice, it might be a home to live in, it might be health resources, whatever. We have to find a way to provide some of those resources. Eji Ogbe does not say you have to give them exactly what they want, but it says, please, as a good leader, try to give everyone something. Don't leave anyone empty-handed. Because this is the Odu of a good leader, and a good leader knows how to meet the needs of everyone in his or her jurisdiction. Ifa also says in this same Eji Ogbe that you will know you've hit your Ire when you have 2 or 3 people a day. Our followers will be wondering why people are coming to us for money, for resources, and we'll say, hey, I don't even have enough for myself. But when people are coming to you, that's because they recognize your ability to assist them. So try to give them resources of one sort or another. It might only be advice that you can give out. It might just be advice, and that's enough, actually. A good piece of advice can save someone's life. Ifa says also, this is advice for leaders. That's the one I really want to focus on, this is an Odu full of psychological problems, of depression, stress, and those things. And one of the best ways to alleviate psychological problems is we all must learn to share our thoughts, because Eji Ogbe says, do not keep your thoughts to yourself. People with Eji Ogbe or people living under Eji Ogbe have so many thoughts and so many plans and so many projects in their mind. Some of them will come to pass, some of them will not. But it's the active and healthy sharing of your thoughts with a trusted confidant that will help you to have blessings this year. So those of us who are quiet or secretive, we have to change that, because our thoughts will begin to fester and smolder, and it will not produce anything positive this year. Ifa says in this same Eji Ogbe, we must not burn any bridges. You know, we all have people in our family or our community who we might have cut off because we're sick of them or because they did something to us. This Ifa says, do not burn any bridges. In fact, we need to go back and repair the bridge that we might have burned. Now, it doesn't say that you have to treat every person in the same way. We must choose how we wish to relate to people, but we must relate to everyone, because again, a good leader knows how to relate to everyone in one way or another, as long as it's appropriate. Really good, what they call listening ears, because Eji Ogbe, you see what the poem had said, it said that they were giving out brass in a town called Iluido. They were giving okun beads, expensive bead in Iraq. Why is it that you only collected listening ears as your share and you skipped over brass and all of the valuables? Oromila said it was because of my followers. And then Oromila goes on to say, if my follower is complaining of lack of prosperity, I will listen carefully, hear what she is saying, return home quickly, address the issue of prosperity, and my follower will be blessed with prosperity. Same with spouse, children, all of it. So this Ifa is saying for leaders, we must have better listening ears this year. And I feel that means listening to people we don't like and we don't agree with. Because if we just keep talking to the same people we like, who we know we agree with, we're not going to get anywhere. You know the phrase, preaching to the choir? We don't really need to convince everybody on this group of human rights. We need to convince and speak with and dialogue with the folks who are right now telling us they don't believe in human rights. So listening ears is a good attribute. It's one of Orumila's attributes, and it's one of Olodumari's attributes. So it's very important to have good listening ears. Ifa also speaks in this Odu of, it's the condition of humanity. Eji Ogbe speaks of 3 brothers who had the same father, but they had different moms and they all spoke different languages, different dialects. And so they couldn't understand each other very well, although they came from the same root, which was the same father. And, you know, we're entering this phase now where we're all obviously from the same place on the continent. We're all from the same genetic base, but we've all diversified over hundreds and thousands and millions of years and different political persuasions. We all believe we're very different now, but Ifa says we have to, as Ifa leaders, we must find the commonalities and work with those. And that again ties into the idea of not burning bridges and not leaving anyone empty-handed. And again, sharing your thoughts with others. Ifa says in here that to improve our situation with coronavirus, with the environmental crisis, with just all the issues we're facing, you know, personal as well as much larger political and social issues, we must be extremely realistic. You know, Ifa had spoken in this Odu of a woman who lost her baby. And so what she was doing was she had a wooden doll of a baby, and she was feeding the wooden doll and putting food by its mouth and putting clothes on it. And Oromila told her, you're not being realistic. If you want a baby, you need to go bring 2 hens, 4 rats, 4 fish, and offer a bowl to have a baby. It says feeding a wooden doll is only deceiving yourself. And I believe on all, we have to, it's not up to me. I don't have the competence or the knowledge to say what is or isn't realistic, but I do know we need to pursue very realistic, achievable goals and not allow ourselves to fall into deception this year. Ifa says that in terms of leadership, we must also learn to delegate. Eji Ogbe, people tend to try to do everything themselves, you know, and we must learn to delegate. Because what Eji Ogbe says is, we'll notice that even if our plans are not very well organized, they'll still turn out pretty well as long as we delegate and kind of spread the wealth around, because people want opportunities to do things. And to delegate resources as well. Ifa says in the same Eji Ogbe that we must not allow our bodies to be abused this year. And especially it's touching on the delicate topic of sexual abuse. Ifa says that no one should ever allow to do disrespectful things with their body. And this Odu is laying particular emphasis on it, and particularly for women. Do not allow your body to be used or abused in certain ways. And that can be relating to sexuality or other ways of treatment, maybe physical abuse or eating disorders, whatever the issue is. We must treat our bodies very well, especially for the sisters out there. We must treat our bodies well. That's what Ifa is asking, because it says in Eji Ogbe that Orunmila had taken offense to how some people, especially women, are allowing their bodies to be treated or how their bodies are being treated. Eji Ogbe says, you know, I'm gonna try to focus on some of the practical things, and I'll give a couple of those, but I want to talk again about one more about leadership. Even Ifa says in this Odu, I and the king, the Oba, am equal. It says the Oba wears a crown, and I wear the Ifa beads on my neck. I and the Oba am equal. This is just a way of saying that Eji Ogbe is requiring all of us to be Ifa ambassadors this year. That our stuff has to be very, very transparent. You know, pretend this year you live in a glass house. Pretend everyone is reading your private Facebook messages and texts. Write your messages, your texts this year as if it's public information. Because if we don't behave transparently, we will fall into corruption. Eji Ogbe requires that transparency. And we've all seen people who have this Odu Eji Ogbe who become involved in secretive or sneaky things. They always fail. So we don't want that to happen to us. Eji Ogbe asks us to be more active in the daytime and less active at night. So for all of you night owls out there, this is not your year. You need to switch to more daytime activity, because it says, at dawn, I saw abundant ray. Very early, 4 days ago, my good destiny manifested. This Odu speaks of getting up early in the morning, working hard, delegating in the morning, sharing your thoughts, developing your projects early in the morning. By the time noon has come, the day is already winding down. Right. Eji Ogbe, of course, this year advises the white clothes, and it discourages black and red. Eji Ogbe asks us to sleep with a nightlight. These are some practical tips. These ain't very philosophical, and we can start that today, because at nightlight, it says the child of Eji Ogbe must never be found in darkness, and that will allow us to shine in our leadership capabilities. Eji Ogbe is saying also in this Odu that I'm echoing what Agbola had said, to stay at home more, because it says in here that don't move around a lot. And then Iya Oshunkemi had mentioned earlier in the chat also. It says blessings are coming to you and they're going to be looking for you at your home. So how ironic that we're on social quarantine and lockdown now, because it's in the home that our blessing will come. Eji Ogbe says all the blessings, all the array that you gather in the market, on the side of the road, it's at home that you enjoy those blessings. So we have to try to be at home and make our homes comfortable as much as we can. But the funny aspect of Eji Ogbe, it says people are stressed out and people are badly in need of vacation. Because, you know, in this Ifa, Obatala, who's when we say he's the Adimu, that means he's the one we're holding on to this year. In this Eji Ogbe Obatala himself, he had so many problems in his home in the city that he had to retreat and go hide in his home in the countryside. It was just too much. It got too much in the city for him. He went to the countryside. He stayed there for a while. And when he came back, his problems in the city had not left, but what had changed was his ability to solve his problems. That's a way of saying we need to spend time in nature and we need vacations. Many of us here and many all over the world, and that's obvious, we've all been locked in the house for 3 months. We need to find time to get recreation and take care of ourselves. I think if we can follow everything we have put together here as Alos, we are going to be great leaders. And there are so many wonderful ebos that we can do for longevity, for peace of mind, to get honor. There are so many. And so we can go into those in detail after Chief Popola has given us the synopsis from all the countries, because he's interviewing in Venezuela and other places as well. So I think I'll participating and to all those who organize this, Boro, Aboy, and homage is paid to my elders. Asheo.
Right. So I think those messages that we've come up with and the analysis that has been shared by everyone has been really, really rich, and I'm thankful for it. The other thing is, this is perhaps the first time that we've done this, and I think, just my opinion, it turned out very well. I hope that we can do this every time from now on. Maybe this can be something that we do from now on, in terms of whenever there's ODUN IFA, that we can come together and analyze, pack it, and then, get more insight from our elders from this. So with that, I want to ask if anyone has anything else that they would like to share very quickly, very shortly. So are there any other comments that anyone would like to make, just to add either praise or add an additional message or what have you? But I only ask that we do that very quickly.
Can anybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, maybe it's fixed for the moment. I just want to thank you for, I can't remember how exactly I got invited, but for the invitation that I received. And it's been very enlightening, I think, very useful. And I'm not sure, I was trying to chime in earlier. I don't like being out of order. But there was one thing I wanted to say, which had to do with Eji Ogbe, which means it says that you guys are, well, as a temple, I'm assuming, I'm not sure even the context of this, but in Eji Ogbe, it speaks of expansion. It speaks of long, hard work. It tells the story of how Ogun had to become the Orisha who worked 24/7 because he tried to force his way into wealth and force his way into the marketplace. But the patience that it speaks of is very useful in terms of sort of waiting your turn, obviously. But he also speaks, Eji Ogbe is also Albatala is one of the Orisha who speaks there substantially of laughter. So sometimes when you get overwhelmed with the workload, find somebody who could tell a good joke or tell one yourself, because it relieves the pressure. perhaps. And also, the leadership issue is really significant here. So the story of Ori and how he became the head of the body, right? So listening to your head, listening to your Ori, and those kinds of things become very significant. Again, Adupe for allowing me to be included.
Sure.
Ashe, thank you for being here, Baba Ifatunji. So, all right.
Abraboye, real quick. Just so that everybody knows this, the messages here are, we're gonna do a summary of basically everything that we shared here today. And that we'll place on Facebook. And so one of us from Otortuka will basically go over all the messages and place that on Facebook. And that's what we'll put as public for everyone to see. And it's only not just us, so just in case to give a context, because Baba had mentioned he didn't know the exact context. So the Odu was cast in Adoekiti, Eji Ogbe, for the new year. And so Chief Popola had asked us to do an analysis of the Odu in our country, basically, of where we're at, so that we give that analysis and connect it to home, basically, more than we're still gonna get messages from the Awos in Nigeria, but he wanted each of us to do that also, so that we can talk about the things that are happening in our environments. And so those other countries, so Trinidad and Tobago, they're doing the same thing that we're doing here. Olayemi, Amber, who's representing the Spanish speakers, he's done the same thing today, but with people from different countries in Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, etc. So, and so all of those, they're gonna do summaries also and place those on Facebook also, so people will have access to all that information for the Odu of the year. And then, so as soon as Chief Popola and Awos in Nigeria also do their usual, every year, their written summary, that will be sent out to people also.
Sure.
I just wanted to add that in there also, so everybody knew. Sure.
Aboroboye, Baba, Jason, thanks for inviting me. And I got in late, but I got the gist of it. And this goes to what Odu goes to what we were talking about yesterday, as far as building community and working with each other. So I hope that we will continue to do this, and whatever issues and disagreements we have, that we could put those aside for the betterment of the wider community. And so that, you know, bit by bit, we will eat the head of the elephant. So as we come together, the little that I know with the little that you know would mean that we would all know more. So Modupe Popo for this, and we pray that it continues.
Sure. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to sum up, giving thanks to everyone for being on this Zoom call. Thank you for all of your analysis, all of your ashe, all of your support, and doing this. And yeah, so we plan to get the messages out as soon as possible. And from there, Ia, whenever you can get the write-up to us, that'd be great. And we'll have it out and available to everyone as soon as possible. Once again, thank you. And yeah, definitely, yeah, we thank you for being our designated writer for this, and we thank everyone for showing up and participating in this process with us. And we plan to get very, so we can move on with even more healing and more ashe, and having a success where we work hard to have our ire. All right. So thank you all so much. And, you know, we really appreciate you. Aboy.
Angboato.
Odabo.
Odabo.
Odabo.